Between Europe and Asia, economic dialogue, humanitarian missions, multi-vector cooperation and search for compromises in the world arena. How else does Kazakhstan participate in the development of the modern world? For more details, watch Kazakhstan International Vectors. Today in the program, Kazakh records in the construction of sports facilities. On what means does mass sport survive in China? Are all games? Is it real? A new tennis training base was recently opened in Almaty. Courts were built in record time for slightly more than a year. All equipment meets international standards.
Здесь находятся наши крытые корты. Как вы видите, объем помещения достаточно
These are our
большой.
sheltered courts. The premise itself is very big, as you can see. However, we managed to heat it in winter times. We also used LED lighting, which saves the electricity and gives more light. In an indoor hall, we can have up to 1,000 lux in the dark period of time, which is quite enough for holding international competitions, even with television broadcasts.
Освещение, что вполне достаточно для проведения международных соревнований даже с телетрансляцией.
Since the launch moment or during the shortest period of about 2 months, these courts have been already visited a couple of international tournaments.
Это был Women's серия ITF Pro. Здесь
We have held the women's from the ITF Pro Series. The girls arrived and played a prize fund of $15,000. The tournament was held all week long, and we've hosted guests from Sweden, Australia and basically from all over the world. Of course, most of the visitors were from the CIS countries, but we are ready to receive visitors from far abroad.
принимайте и принимаем гостей из дальнего зарубежья.
Lawn tennis is a relatively new kind of sport for Kazakhstan. However, the country has already raised several champions. Now training bases are being built in record time, and the trainers themselves are learned rising worthy athletes from the younger generation. The sports industry is one of the fastest growing and most sensitive to all kinds of changes on the planet. Sport of great achievements depends on politics, new technologies and all kinds of innovations. It is interesting that virtual reality today is also being penetrating in the world of big sport. There are already programs that allow watching football matches from the point of view of any of the players, and real athletes learn some new tricks, computer games. Esports also occupy an important place in the industry. Competitions with a multi-million-dollar prize pool are being seen by 20,000 spectators. Today, as many as 46 people have become dollar millionaires due to sports successes in virtual reality. According to analysts, in 2018, the revenue of the global esports market will increase by 38% compared to 2017 and amount to more than $900 million. Experts predict that by 2021, this amount will exceed $1.5 billion. Leaders in this segment today are North America and China. However, esports are still far from reaching the top 10 popular sports in the world. For many decades, the first place in this industry is surely occupied by football. The number of its admirers around the world has already approached 5 million. This sport also has the largest number of professional and amateur leagues on the planet. The best football players earn more than 40,000 euros a year. The 5 most popular sports in the world also include basketball, with about 8 billion viewers in the US, Italy, Greece, France and China, cricket with 2 billion fans in England, New Zealand, India and its neighboring countries and in South Africa. It is followed by tennis and track and field athletics. There are 2 most anticipated events in the world of sports: the World Football Cup and the Olympic Games. TV and internet broadcasts of the World Cup, the English Premier League and the Olympics do have the largest contracts.
После проведения зимней Всемирной универсиады мы сделали заявку на...
After the Winter World Universiade, we made an application for hosting the Winter Olympic Games. the peak of the whole sport, and we've lost only 4 votes to Beijing. Do you understand how great the authority of Kazakhstan in the world sports arena is? When during the voting in front of members of the Olympic Committee, we went through all the preliminary stages and have lost only at the final. China has a great power, as you know, and more opportunities.
Прошли все предварительные этапы, и только вот на финише проиграли 4 голоса, значит, Китаю. Ну, Китай, знаете, великая держава, у них гораздо больших возможностей.
While some are engaged in big sports, others are fond of mass sports. Keeping yourself in shape today is fashionable all over the world. Businessmen and coaches come up with new types of sports activities to interest customers and earn money. For example, in 2018, the world learned about intensive training in the water environment, new power forms of yoga and running classes. By the way, sport has become somewhat a way to make new acquaintances, as the record for mass trainings usually takes place in social groups and networks. In a short period of time of being an independent state, Kazakhstan proved its name on the international sports arena. Kazakh skiers, freestylers and weightlifters received the highest awards. Everybody knows our world-famous boxers. Gennady Golovkin, for example, who have become the world champion for several times and took silver medal at the Olympic Games in Athens. His name is a brand today, and when we were getting ready to host the Expo, our president went to New York to meet Golovkin to give him a status of the Expo ambassador.
Когда был в Нью-Йорке, он с ним встречался и дал ему статус посла Экспо.
Boxing and wrestling are the most popular sports in our country. More than 50,000 local residents are engaged in them. Only football maybe can compete with boxing, though not in terms of achievements, but in the popularity. Athletes who are engaged in weightlifting and water sports become more and more successful, though there is something else.
А посмотрите, например,
Look, for example, at the Astana cycling team, which was also created by the decree of our president. The presidential club Astana and the cycling team were established. We have won the Tour de France 3 times and some other European cycling sport events.
испанскую Vueltu.
Athletes work for the image of the country in the international arena. Thanks to this, more and more people are getting to know about Kazakhstan and its capital, Astana. The 2017 Universiade is one of the most significant events in the sports world in Kazakhstan. Representatives of 57 countries took part in the main sports competition for students. This is the highest result in the history of these games. The largest number of athletes was representing Russia, 223, Kazakhstan, 171, and China, 119. Japan, 110 athletes, and South Korea, 99 athletes, were also among the leaders in terms of participants. In total, about 2,000 people took part in the Winter Universiade. The country has hosted world champions in boxing, judo, weightlifting, cycling and water polo. Kazakhstan is also actively developing winter sports. All this became possible thanks to the efforts to develop these sports infrastructure. Today, both the state and sponsors continue to invest in the construction of new facilities. We've conducted a survey among the residents of Kazakhstan asking what do they know about Kazakh if what they've responded. If talking about Summer Olympics, I think Kazakhstan is quite successful in these terms. But our sportsmen need to further improve their achievements in Winter Olympics. I think that our position in the world sports and in the global sport achievements is relatively high. We have the world-famous boxer, and in terms of boxing we're quite successful, unlike football or hockey. I wish there were many more sportsmen of the world class. All over the world, lawn tennis is considered to be an elite sport. However, in Kazakhstan today, there is a growing interest towards tennis among all these social groups without any exceptions. The same happens with the demand for training. Over the past 10 years, Modern courts have appeared in almost every region. Their number today approaches 200, while the new ones continue to open.
Именно этот объект, он обошелся Федерации.
This very object demanded 1,700 million tenge from the Federation. This sum includes design works, construction itself, inventory that is inside, an international level covering and everything else. Now this center is ready for the international tournaments that are already underway in our country.
Международные турниры, которые уже проходят у нас.
Money for construction was allocated by sponsors. However, the infrastructure is far from being enough to guarantee success in big sport. The personnel are important.
Федерация тенниса ежегодно проводит эти.
Kazakh Tennis Federation annually holds seminars. We bring teachers who conduct masterclasses on different subjects. There are 10 coaches who already have a great working experience. They have already raised players for international tournaments. Each of them has his own zone of responsibility when the trainees are being distributed among the trainers according to age and skills.
За ними распределены, скажем, их зоны ответственности по возрастам, по подготовленности, по количеству занятий.
The Team Kazakhstan is a unique project of the Kazakh Tennis Federation, which started in 2008. Its essence is in the development of children's and youth tennis through a tennis academy, which provides all necessary conditions for its guests. Participation in international and national tournaments, training process with leading world experts, accommodation, food, medical care and much more. Every year, the academy in Astana and its branches in Almaty and Shymkent recruit promising juniors. No less careful work is done with the smallest tennis players being recruited, of the age from 5 to 8 years.
Одним из аспектов это, конечно, работа среди детей.
One of the aspects of our work among children is the search for young talents. For this, everything is being done, starting from adaptive equipment, special tournaments being held in different age categories. All that is being used in accordance with the program of tennis up to the age of 10. It allows Federation to make tennis interesting and accessible to every child, both in terms of the study process and in the physical activity.
Для ребенка. Как в изучении, так и в подготовке физической.
Even if children won't become professional tennis players or stars of world sports, in the future they will be able to ensure continuity of the training system which is being created. Mass sport appeared in Western countries when the first working week was shortened. It was then that the so-called free time industry arose. The construction of campsites, sports boarding houses in hotels, ski lifts in resort areas, artificial ice rinks, indoor swimming pools and the like became affordable. Mass production of sports equipment became profitable. Fashion for mass sports was created, not without the help of radio, cinema and television. After the Second World War in the 1950s and 1960s, active intervention by the state in setting up physical education of the population was taking shape in developed countries. In 1956, US President Eisenhower drew attention to the problem of poor physical fitness of youth and formed the Presidential Council for Physical Training in Sports, which became one of the main vehicles of the national campaign for the recovery of the American nation. However, the country had never had a separate ministry for sports. Mass sports in the US is a matter for local communities, patrons, schools and universities. Profession of a coach or physical education teacher is very prestigious. The cult of a healthy lifestyle in the United States is harmoniously associated with an abundance of sports infrastructure facilities, from public playgrounds for basketball to modern sports facilities. Competition of school children at the All-American level is supervised by the National Federation of Schools Associations, or NFHS, which unites over 18,000 educational institutions. The National Athletic Association of Colleges, NCAA, which includes over 1,000 or 1,200 universities, is engaged in student competitions. Its annual income amounts to almost $1 billion. Contrary to popular belief in China, support for sports is not an exclusive concern of the communist state. Representatives of big business make a serious contribution to financing sports of higher achievements. The main department for sports operates as part of the Chinese government. Over 15 years of the state program of nationwide health promotion, $200 million have been allocated annually from the state budget for sports purposes. As a result, a huge number of sports facilities were opened. On average, there are 7 stadiums for every 10,000 people in the country. In 2014, a law was passed according to which the profit tax for large corporations financing sports and culture is reduced from 25 to 15%, and for the most active investors in sports and culture, even up to 3%. In January 2016, Kazakhstan approved the state strategy for the development of physical culture and sports until 2025. This program is being updated on average every 5 years. The main attention in it is drawn to the development of mass sports, as this is the basis of the nation's health and for the sport of higher achievements.
Болашаққа арналған жоспарлар бұл ең бірінші қолжетімді
The infrastructure goes number one in our plans for the nearest future. To date, the Ministry of Culture and Sport, through the Samrud Kazina Fund and together with the regional Archimats, is working to improve the street infrastructure and sports grounds. In addition, we are going to further develop and popularize the street workout, as it is stated by the National Olympic Committee. The Republic develops this kind of sport in all the ways possible.
Республикамыздың барлық облыстарында бұл қазір жақсы дамып кетіп, қанатын жайып.
Today the country has more than 11,000 different sports facilities. Only for the last year, a half dozen of sports and recreation complexes across the country were built and commissioned. They were built in the most remote rural areas where there has never been a sports infrastructure before. The goal set by the head of state, to get a third of the population interested in amateur sports, has almost been achieved. It is noteworthy that in recent years, the number of children and adolescents involved in sports has increased. This became possible due to the growing number of children's and youth sports schools, as well as through issuing grant and scholarships encouraging young people to participate in sports. We have to develop sports among the youth. We are working on this plan with the Ministry of Education and Science, creating school leagues and student leagues, and developing people's sports. The country didn't leave national sports apart. Today there are 7 specialized sports clubs for national sports and 9 specialized sports schools where the OWL sports games are held. The country has held the Asian Games and Universiade 2017 at the highest level.
В прошлом году, в августе месяце, в столице летней Всемирной универсиады в городе Тайпей.
Last year in August, in the capital of the Summer Universiade, Taipei, an executive committee was held. Specialists highly evaluated Universiade in Almaty and awarded it with the highest rating. They even said that it was the best Universiade among others. Fine sports facilities were built, for example, Almaty Arena, of a capacity of 12,000 people.
Увидим этой универсиады, например, на Алмата-арена вместимостью 12 тысяч человек. Там сегодня проходит очень много культурно-массовых мероприятий.
While the state is engaged in the development of mass sports, the National Olympic Committee leads to success in the sport of higher achievements. It is difficult to overestimate the importance of sports for a particular person. It gives health, it forms a strong-willed character and the ability to fight. Sport is equally important for the image of the state on the world arena, because successes of athletes guarantee recognition of the country and its citizens.
Национальный олимпийский комитет намерен выставить кандидатуру Казахстана на проведение зимних Олимпиад.
The National Olympic Committee intends to nominate Kazakhstan for hosting the Winter Olympic Games in 2030. Therefore, by this time, I think our sports potential will be so great that it is likely that our competitors will all be defeated. Therefore, the status of Kazakhstan today in world sports can be defined as a sports state headed by the sports president.
Статус Казахстана сегодня в мировом спорте можно вот так определить, что это спортивная держава во главе со спортивным президентом.
According to international experts, Almaty is already 80% ready to host the Winter Olympics. So it's a matter of continuation to further educate young generation of Kazakh sportsmen.